All right, so are you ready to dive in? Today, we're going deep, really deep, into a life, well, let's just say it's a life less ordinary. I Forgot to Die. That's our source material, the autobiography of Khalil Rafati.
I can already tell what some listeners might be thinking. Oh, not another addiction memoir.
Right, but hold on, because this one, it's different, trust me.
It certainly is. This isn't your typical story of redemption. It's raw, it's real, and honestly, there are moments where you'll find yourself laughing out loud.
Absolutely, it's unexpectedly funny at times, and it really digs deep beyond the surface level of addiction.
It does. What struck me is how much Khalil's story highlights something we all crave, that longing for a connection, for escape, for something more than what we think we're stuck with.
It's universal, that search, and for Khalil, it starts early.
Oh, absolutely.
His childhood, let's just say it wasn't exactly stable. Imagine domestic violence, this mix of religious influences from his parents. It's almost as if chaos was just the baseline.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how those early environments, how they shape us. Our sense of safety, of what's normal, even what we find exciting. Khalil actually describes finding a thrill and defiance, almost like it was an addiction in itself.
No kidding! He writes about riding his bike right across those busy streets completely on purpose.
Oh, wow.
Just to feel that rush when drivers slam on their brakes, terrified.
That's a powerful image, that.
Yeah.
Risking your life just for a moment of control, for that feeling of being truly alive, especially when he felt so suffocated at home.
Yeah. And that same pattern, it pops up again with alcohol. It wasn't just about getting drunk for him, it was different.
Oh, how so?
Getting drunk, it was like this shield, a way to feel invincible, to block out that deep-seated vulnerability he carried.
It's like he stumbled onto a coping mechanism before he even realized what he was trying to cope with, which, let's be honest, is often the case with addiction. It's not about the substance itself. It's what helps us avoid feeling, what need it's masking.
Filling that void, yeah. So those seeds, they were sown early on, but then music enters the picture. And music, it becomes this lifeline, this escape route that eventually leads him to California.
And not just any music. We're talking grunge, industrial, all that raw energy of that era. It's like the music itself mirrored his internal state.
Yeah.
That need to break free from the norm, to really feel something intensely.
Totally. He even talks about driving all the way from Toledo to Detroit just to go to this club, the Shelter, becoming part of that whole scene.
It was a scene that celebrated individuality, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Challenged the status quo. And I think for those who felt like outsiders, it offered a sense of belonging. So it's not a coincidence that this music, that this environment became his sanctuary.
And then there's this moment, I love this part. He's driving into LA for the first time, and Mountain Song by Jane's Addiction is blasting on the radio.
Oh, I remember that song.
He describes it as this feeling of arrival, like he'd finally found his tribe.
It's powerful, that feeling. The allure of reinvention, of outrunning your past. It's potent. But as we'll see, even palm trees and sunshine, they can't outrun those internal battles forever.
They can't. And that's where things get even more interesting. He arrives in California, reconnects with his friend Kenny.
Yeah.
Only to discover that Kenny's now dating his ex-girlfriend, Amanda.
Oh, no. You're kidding.
Talk about an awkward reunion, right?
Awkward is putting it mildly.
But then, and this is the best part, just when you think it can't get any worse, he stumbles into the most unlikely career, detailing cars for celebrities.
Wait, what?
Seriously, one minute he's caught in this love triangle, the next he's polishing Slash's Porsche.
That's incredible. What a turn of events.
Right?
But it is almost ironic, isn't it? He finds success, and in this world of Hollywood glamour, no less, working on cars owned by Elizabeth Taylor, rubbing shoulders with rock stars.
Living the dream. On the surface.
Exactly. But all the while, those deeper issues, those unmet needs from his past, they're still there, simmering beneath the surface.
That's what I find so fascinating about this part of his story. It reminds us that external success, it doesn't always equal inner peace. He might have traded small-town boredom for the fast life in LA, but was he truly confronting what he needed to confront? And that's where it feels like the story takes a turn, a really dark turn.
The California dream. Yeah, loses its shine a bit. Those underlying issues, all the things he was trying to outrun, they catch up with him.
It's like all that LA glitz and glamour fades and addiction. It takes center stage. He describes his first experience with heroin, and it's honestly chilling. He says it wasn't even about chasing a high.
Really?
It was about finding peace, a sense of peace he'd never known.
Which is, of course, a dangerous illusion. Heroin, it offers this oblivion, this temporary escape from, well, from the pain of just being alive, wouldn't you say? But that escape, as Khalil learns the hard way, it comes with a price, a devastating price.
And that cost, it almost took his life. There's the story, it's really harrowing, about him overdosing at a friend's house. He even has this out-of-body experience while the paramedics are trying to revive him.
It's a turning point you see in a lot of addiction narratives
Yeah.
that brush with death. It's like this forced reckoning with your choices.
Yeah.
For some people, it's a wake-up call, a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
For others, and it's tragic, it's the beginning of the end.
And for Khalil, it becomes this long and it's agonizing, this battle with recovery.
A battle that is anything but straightforward. He talks about going in and out of rehab centers, each one a flicker of hope, followed by this crushing disappointment. It really highlights how cyclical addiction is, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like this constant chase to recapture that initial high, but it always ends with withdrawal, shame, this overwhelming urge to just use again. And this really got me. In the middle of all that, he tells this story, and it's really poignant, about a Jamaican drug dealer who wouldn't sell him heroin.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, here's someone who's a part of that world, the drug trade, and even he can see how deep Khalil's despair is, how strong the grip of addiction is. Instead of making the sale, this dealer, he urges him to get help. He even gives him money for rehab.
It's incredible. Talk about unexpected compassion, right? It just goes to show you, even in the darkest places, you can find these glimmers of humanity, moments that defy all expectations.
It makes you wonder, did that dealer see something of himself in Khalil? Or maybe it was just a moment of conscience. Whatever it was, it speaks volumes.
It really does. But it wasn't just these random acts of kindness that helped him turn things around. Khalil, he talks about this pivotal moment in therapy where his counselor asks him this question, and it's so simple but so profound. Who would you be without your story?
Wow.
Right.
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? That question, it forces you to confront all those stories you've built up about yourself, those narratives about why you are the way you are. It's like a challenge to envision a different future, one where you're not defined by your past.
It's like he was finally being challenged to own his life instead of blaming his past, blaming other people. And that shift, it paves the way for these incredible changes.
So what happens next?
He starts small, walking dogs for a stranger, someone kind.
Oh, that's nice.
It's amazing how something so simple can snowball into something bigger. It shifted his energy, his outlook on things.
It makes sense.
And then there's yoga. He talks about this feeling of healing he gets from it, this sense of release, like it finally helped him connect with his body and his emotions.
Right, because yoga for a lot of people, it's more than just physical. It's about integrating the mind, the body, the spirit. And it can bring this feeling of inner peace, of connection.
Exactly.
And for someone like Khalil, who had been so disconnected from himself, that's huge.
It's like he finally found a healthy way to cope with all that stress and trauma he'd been carrying around. And that, it seems, is where SunLife Organics starts to come together. So he's found a little bit of peace in his life. He's passionate about this whole healthy living thing. But it's not all smooth sailing from here, is it?
Not exactly, no.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting, at least from a psychological standpoint. Khalil talks about becoming obsessed with making money.
Oh, wow.
He had put all his savings into gold, and he lost everything. So he became fixated on getting back that financial security.
It's like he swapped one craving for another,
Yeah.
Like that old saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Exactly.
He turned his life around in so many ways, but those deep-seated patterns, those unaddressed needs, they were still there, just waiting for a new outlet.
And that's a key takeaway from his story, I think.
Oh, yeah.
True recovery. It's not just about staying away from substances. It's about facing those underlying patterns, those core wounds that drive us to seek comfort in external things. Could be drugs, money, status, anything really.
And he does hit a wall with that, right? He loses his job at the Canyon, that high-end treatment center where he was working.
Right.
It seemed like he was really dedicated to helping those clients, that he connected with their struggles, but then those old patterns, that defiance, the self-sabotage, it all came back.
It's a powerful reminder that addiction is complex. It's often a chronic condition. And it's not just a matter of willpower or good intentions.
Right. But even after that setback, he doesn't give up. He takes that energy, that drive, and channels it into something new, SunLife Organics.
It was a huge leap of faith. He didn't have any formal business training. He poured his heart, his soul, and what was left of his savings into this juice bar. But he had this vision, this belief in the power of healthy living, and he was determined to make something positive out of it.
And it wasn't just about the juice, was it?
No, not at all.
He talks about wanting to create a space for people, a welcoming environment, the opposite of those judgmental health food stores he'd been to.
He wanted to make being healthy joyful.
Hmm.
That's what's so inspiring about SunLife Organic success. It's not just the product, it's the feeling, a sense of community he created.
And there's this amazing story he tells. It's the day before the juice bar is supposed to open. He's completely exhausted, stressed, wondering if anyone's even going to show up. And then, out of nowhere, this gospel choir
Oh,
appears.
no. Well,
Yes. And they start singing outside the store.
wow, that sends chills down my spine just hearing that. What are the chances?
Right. It's like a sign from the universe telling him he's on the right path. Even in the middle of all the chaos, the uncertainty, something beautiful can happen.
Khalil's story is such a powerful testament to the fact that transformation is possible, even after hitting rock bottom, even after setback. It's proof of the human spirit's resilience.
It really is. And it makes you think about that question his therapist asked him: who would you be without your story?
Hmm.
What if we all asked ourselves that? Not just about addiction, but about life in general. What stories are we clinging to that aren't doing us any favors anymore? What if we dared to imagine new possibilities for ourselves?
That's a powerful question to end on. What stories are we telling ourselves? And how can we change those narratives to create a more authentic, fulfilling future? That's something we can all think about.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into I Forgot to Die. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish the book. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope, always the possibility for redemption and renewal. Until next time, keep those stories in mind, the ones you're telling yourself and the ones you want to write.